Hey, welcome back everyone. It is now the last day of March of 2022, and as we get closer and closer to the official release of the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV series and the full-length trailer, which by the way, is all set and ready to release by early May, we're getting very close to that point in time to where the marketing is going to hit its peak, so keep an eye open for that. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way guys, if you want to go ahead and drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, I thank you all so very much for the kind support. It is greatly appreciated. Now, here we are. It is March 31st. We are heading into April, by far one of the most important months of 2022 for Lucasfilm as a company for multiple reasons. Number one is that The Mandalorian Season 3 officially is getting and going into post-production. Basically, they're going to begin editing the new season, doing everything with the music, the after effects, everything related to that. And we also have a lot of things happening with the Ahsoka Tano series. In fact, it's going to begin filming in just 2 weeks' time from the day of today, and they have a lot of things being planned with Rosario Dawson, Hayden Christensen, and more coming for this June for a lot of their scenes to be filmed. So there's a lot of things happening with all of these new Star Wars TV shows at the same exact time, and I really do have to give George, John, and Dave a lot of credit for doing that. Now, on top of all of this, when it all dwindles down to actor Mark Hamill. Now, one thing about Mark Hamill is that this is a guy that's been more vocal recently about his experience with the Star Wars universe, from working on the sequels, to working on The Mandalorian, to what he thought about the book of Boba Fett and Luke Skywalker's debut in that show. I mean, there's a lot of things that Mark Hamill has been touching on when it comes to Star Wars as a whole. However, when it all comes down to one specific thing that I think a lot of fans are going to be very surprised about, has all to do with a specific character and what Mark Hamill recently had to say about all of this. Now, on top of that, with both Disney and Lucasfilm now focused on their new Star Wars projects like the Ahsoka series and even Mando Season 4, creators Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have been very involved with new projects that have yet to be announced that will be at Star Wars Celebration. However, it's noted that currently Lucasfilm is working on a big project that is set to drop by holiday of 2023, and that Disney is set to begin work on all of this by late 2022. However, in a recent interview, actor Mark Hamill went on to discuss more about his experience with the sequel trilogy movies and his future with Star Wars. Mark Hamill went on to state, "When I was working on the last film with JJ, all I can remember is that there was a lot of arguing between Kathleen Kennedy and JJ on what to do with some of the characters' origins and their stories, and even the entire ending of the feature film. We had done a scene, believe it or not, that we mostly filmed, though it remained unedited, where they were going to attach Rey's origins to the Kenobi bloodline by making her the granddaughter of him. JJ had some fantastic ideas that truly surprised me, and I was so sad to see this way of storytelling vanish. So we had Rey confronting her origin on this massive, crazy set that was like a Batcave, to say the least. And you know how I like Batman, so this was like living in the Batcave for a couple of days. With tons of illuminated crystals is how I would best describe it, where she would meet with Kenobi's apparition and speak with him until Obi-Wan reveals who he really is. JJ was this close to making Rey a Kenobi because he wanted to provide closure to why Rey heard Kenobi's voice in Episode 7. So let me just pause right here for 1 second before we get on to what Mark Hamill had to say after this as well, is that when you actually listen to the flashback scene in The Force Awakens, you do hear Kenobi's voice, and I know that's very obvious, a lot of fans know this. The thing is that what they ended up doing in the final cut of the film is that they warped that into becoming a flash forward, in a sense, during the time of Episode 7 of Force Ghost Kenobi speaking to Rey when she is on the ground over at Exegol. So they kind of twisted things around a little bit to kind of just do a lazy explanation of that. That was probably a very lazy explanation. What JJ really wanted to do originally was to make Rey a Kenobi, and that's why Kenobi only was really speaking to Rey in the flashback scene in Episode 7. You know, we didn't hear Mace Windu and all these different characters speaking to Rey. It was only Kenobi strictly reaching out to Rey in that flashback. And that's exactly why a lot of fans at the time assumed that she was connected to that Kenobi bloodline. And that's exactly what JJ was going to accomplish with Episode 9. And that was all sabotaged by Kathleen Kennedy having a lot of problems with that direction after a while. She had a change of heart. She felt that it wasn't too original. And we'll get into more of this in just a second of what Mark Hamill had to say. So I think that they really should have done this. This would have made more sense. And, well, let's get on to what Mark Hamill also had to touch on, is that he goes on to say that we had Ewan McGregor do some minimal work. And when I mean minimal, we mean minimal. Like scanning his face in order to make Kenobi entirely CGI by mixing his face with Sir Alec Guinness's. Lucasfilm and JJ were really doing something pretty exciting for the fandom around the world, and this would have been a historic moment in history for the fandom without a doubt. We had Rey and the Kenobi figure exchange just a couple of lines of dialogue to where they, to my surprise, actually wanted me involved in the scene as well, strictly as a Force ghost voice tuning into Rey and talking with Kenobi in order for Rey to accept and understand Kenobi's big revelation to Rey, and that it was true to convince her to keep moving forward and to accept her Jedi bloodline. But this wasn't enough eventually for Kathleen Kennedy. They felt that this was too much into the whole fan service thing, and that they wanted something more original or something that the fans would think less about to make the film have a bigger surprise. Now, I don't know if you guys recall, and let me just stop right there for 1 second. I don't know if you guys recall, but Kathleen Kennedy essentially lied to the entire fandom. I believe that this was, give or take, I think it was like maybe the fall of 2019, right around maybe October or early November, where Kathleen Kennedy said that Palpatine was not a last-minute addition, that he was in the cards to be the big bad in, The Force Awakens, or since The Force Awakens. Since they were working on The Force Awakens, they had all of this in mind, and multiple people like JJ and Chris Terrio and all these other creators that worked on the movie, even some actors out there like John Boyega, even admitted that Palpatine was a last-minute shoehorn decision. And that just makes a lot of sense now. So, moving on from this, alright, Mark Hamill goes on to state that, and so that's exactly what they had planned to do in order to make her into a Kenobi, but they ended up making her into a Palpatine. You see, JJ wanted Rey to become a Kenobi to make it poetic, to have Rey as Kenobi's grandchild, fighting and confronting Vader's grandchild, being Kylo Ren. I mean, it was perfect and would have been one of the most accepted choices in pop culture, to me at least. But we never got to place this in the final cut, to my surprise, and it was just a darn shame to us and the crew that worked on this whole sequence together. It was truly a blast to have seen this happen, and almost happen. So, the thing about Mark Hamill is that you could tell that he was honored to be a part of the scene, even if it was minimal, just being a Force ghost voice communicating with both Kenobi and Rey, kind of mimicking of how Kenobi's Force ghost voice tunes in to both Yoda and Luke when they're in that hut on Dagobah, talking to each other about Luke trying to become a Jedi. They tried to actually emulate that in Episode 9 to their best ability, almost reverse-wise. Instead of having one Force ghost, they wanted two Force ghosts in the scene. That to me was very interesting because they could have done so much work with that. They could have done so much more in line with how Kenobi would have been, like the Obi-Wan figure, talking to Rey through a voice, and Kenobi would have been more like the Yoda figure to Rey, being that real master of the Jedi, but he's got that connection to her, and it would have been something very unique and different. So you can see how JJ tried to play off what was done in Empire, but wanted to do something different at the same exact time. So overall, guys, drop a comment below, let me know about all this in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.